For Every Adventure, the podcast that dives deep into everything outdoor.
Chanel, we weren't reserved this episode. In fact, we were nature reserved.
I can't with your jokes.
Okay.
Just can't.
But it was a fun episode. if you want to learn a bit more about Cape Nature, what they do at a nature reserve, the activities that awaits you, you can stay over, all the educational aspects of it. It was a good chat. Alan, a great guy, a lot of passion for nature.
Yeah.
And I mean, if this doesn't inspire you to get out and to just experience the outdoors, then I don't know what will.
For Every Adventure, an outdoor podcast experience brought to you by Outdoor Warehouse.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is For Every Adventure. My name is Kyle. Hello, Chanel.
Hello, how are you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing great because today we're talking nature reserves with Alan, and it's a real fun listen. We're going to learn so much.
Yeah, you think nature reserves, but there are so many, especially here in the Cape. So Alan's a great person to speak to. I must ask you, Kyle, is it something that you do or aspire to do or have done? Like, do you visit nature reserves?
I have not a lot in my life. I've definitely went on school camps to nature reserves where I learned a thing or two, but I do love nature and I would love to, like most of the episodes we've recorded, make some time to actually go do it, because as you'll find out, there's so many aspects to a nature reserve. You learn about conservation, there are activities for you to do, the local communities are involved. It's a real fun chat.
Yeah, I think we also don't realize where we've been. Actually, it's sort of part of our lives because it's all around us.
Yes.
So, I mean, from school where they take you sort of up Table Mountain and then you go whale watching or whatever.
Yes.
As a Cape Townian, we're so spoiled and so lucky, actually.
And it's not far away from us. This is something we don't always think about. You don't have to go very far out of your way to actually visit a nature reserve.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. So let's get into it.
Yes.
Experience the best in hiking, camping, cooking, off-road, and outdoor games just for you. Our rewards members enjoy an exclusive discount on festive gear and apparel. Not a member yet? Sign up in-store or online today. Unwrap the spirit of adventure. Visit Outdoor Warehouse and make this festive season an epic adventure while stocks last. T's and C's apply. Outdoor Warehouse. For every adventure. For Every Adventure. The official Outdoor Warehouse podcast that brings you everything you need to know for your next adventure.
So it's our pleasure to welcome Alan Wheeler today. He's from Cape Nature and is their landscape manager, so definitely the best person to speak to. He's got, I think, 40 years of conservation experience. Hi, Alan. Welcome.
Hi, Chanel. Good morning. Hi, Kyle.
Hello, Alan. So, listen, let's start where it all begins, and that's the passion for nature. So where did that come from for you?
Yes, no, I think it started off very early. I grew up in a little town in the Eastern Cape and spent a lot of time out in the veld, exploring and doing all kinds of things. And I think it just a love for nature just developed from there. And then, of course, as you understand a little bit more about it, you want to do something to protect it. And then the rest is history.
So obviously that passion, that love for nature, as you said, it leads to wanting to conserve it, or the conservation aspect of it. But how do you actually get involved in conservation?
I suppose there are a number of ways. You could choose the career route. You can go and study for it. There are a number of courses you can do at the universities of technology or at the universities, various degrees to do with the biological sciences. And then the career area is quite wide open. There's a lot one can do. Most people who get into nature conservation either go for joining an organization like Cape Nature, where our role is really to protect the biodiversity of the Western Cape, or they go into any one of a number of non-governmental organizations that focus on nature conservation. So there's a lot of scope out there for people who are interested in going into conservation.
And Alan, you at the moment, you're focusing more on management. But what's your background? Did you specifically study in that direction?
Well, I started off studying a national diploma in nature conservation. So that kind of gets you into the mainstream management of conservation. And then I followed a bit of an academic route, and I got a PhD in conservation biology. But my main focus is on management, real applied conservation biology. And I think that's one of the most important places to be in conservation, being able to affect good management.
I see. And then maybe for us that don't really know, like on a day-to-day basis, what does your work entail? Or then nature conservation as a whole?
Yeah, it's quite complex. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of nature reserves and estuaries and marine protected areas that we manage. So I suppose in one regard, it's very similar to any organization where you would have the standard things that you need to manage, like the people and the money and the resources and the systems and processes. But the actual work involves things like making sure that the alien vegetation is eradicated, cleared, ongoing work there, doing the ecological projects, checking on, for example, the penguin chicks are all right.
Okay.
Doing various monitoring work and of course the law enforcement as well, which is quite a big issue, to be out there with the visible policing and the patrolling and so on.
That must be quite challenging.
Yes, that is quite a big thing at the moment, unfortunately. Kind of lawlessness in the marine and on land. We have big problems with the poaching on land as well. Funnily enough, the plants are a big challenge at the moment, succulent plants.
So how do you go about to combat this?
Well, key is partnerships. Okay. So we've got good partnerships with the South African Police Service, with the Department of Fisheries and Forestry along the coast and so on. And we have combined operations with a number of role players. And of course, police intelligence. So it's really about a partnership. But one does feel it's just the tip of the iceberg that you're seeing, and there's a lot more going on than what we actually see. That's very, very scary, actually.
Alan, so is there a lot of marine conservation that's included? Is it both then, on land and marine in your case?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what makes this work so wonderful. It's, one really gets a good idea of the diversity across the land and into the sea. So we've got our terrestrial nature reserves that go from the high mountains, the catchment areas, the water catchment areas, down through the rivers to the estuaries that join into the sea. And then we have those marine protected areas that protect the biodiversity in that offshore system, which is absolutely fascinating. So, we're very fortunate in the Western Cape with Cape Nature in managing large systems and a number of nature reserves. It's very good.
It's a tough job, and thank you for doing it, and everyone else who's involved in the conservation aspect. And thinking about conservation or, human existence, we've been around for a long time, and only a very short amount of that time we have been aware of the conservation aspect when it comes to nature. So I think the question is, why? Why are we aware of it, and why is it important?
That's such a good question, Kyle. And you're right. If one looks at timescales, the awareness of the importance of protecting nature is very, very recent. And I think what really happened is people became more knowledgeable. There was better science. We started understanding what the impacts of damaging nature could be. And there's some prime examples of where people have kind of obliterated species. The bison in America, the springbuck herds that used to roam across the Great Karoo here in South Africa. So I think the mindset, the thinking has changed a lot relatively recently. And we're talking about 200 years, 150, 200 years ago. There were vast herds of things all over the place, and a lot of damage was done. But I do think that people have now realized generally the importance, especially the younger generation, the importance of looking after what we have.
I'm wondering about the progress we've made, like the Industrial Revolution, that had to do a lot of damage to the climate. Do you think we would have been where we are now without that?
Oh, what a good question. I wonder, wouldn't it have been wonderful if they invented something that ran on water and gave off oxygen or something? I don't know. I don't know where we would be. But I think it's quite complex,
Definitely a complex thing to think about, but also there are ways, and humans are so, we figure things out and we find a way forward.
Sometimes one gets the feeling like it's too late. Like we've stuffed it up.
Well, let's Alan answer that question.
Do you think?
Well, it depends on who you're speaking to. Sometimes you do want to say, "Listen, we've messed it up badly. Come on, guys." Yeah.
But you think nature is resilient? It'll always find a way, right? If we pull up our socks.
Yes, definitely. But just a kind of a caution on that as well. We do know that some systems, if you damage them too much, they can't get back up. They cross the threshold and they can't really get back up. And we've got to be so careful of that, especially when it comes to kind of viable populations that if they aren't able to continue viably, they just become extinct, species. And that's the tricky thing about nature as well. Everything is so intricately connected. One doesn't want to lose anything.
Alan, could you tell us a bit more about the different Cape Nature Reserves? I mean, there are so many, but maybe tell us a bit about them and their unique characteristics and what makes each one of them so special.
Absolutely. So we've got about 112 nature reserves in a number of clusters across the Western Cape, right up from there's a lot, and it's very, very diverse. So we've got up in the kind of northwestern part, we've got the Knaasvlakte, which is really dry and succulent. And then you come down towards Cape Town and we've got the beautiful reserves around Stellenbosch and Paarl, and those are mountain catchment areas with a lot of fynbos and rivers. And then you get our coastal, you come down a little bit more south and you get our marine protected areas and our whale sanctuary off Hermanus, and a lot of the estuaries that flow in that we protect as well. And so, you've got nature reserves like Kuchelberg that contain the mountain catchments, the rivers, the lowland areas, and a big penguin colony, Stony Point, which is over there. And then Walker Bay, for example, is one of our coastal reserves with a beautiful stretch of beach all the way from Hermanus through to De Kelders. And we've got a fisherman trail that you can go on there and just wonderful coastal vegetation that's totally unspoilt. And it stretches all the way across then to Plettenberg Bay, where we've got our Robberg and our Keerbooms nature reserves. Also a beautiful river habitat on the Keerbooms, and you can kayak up there and stay in a cabin on the river. It's just really wonderful. And all of these reserves, and there's so many of them, including some of the islands, they've all got something relatively unique. They've been proclaimed to protect some system or species. So they're all very, very special.
Wow. I think, and when it comes to activities, we're going to be looking for animals, we're going to be looking for vegetation, but you mentioned kayaking. Are there other sort of interesting activities that you can do when you go and visit one of these reserves?
Yes, I think most people really like the trails, going out and being able to camp on a nature reserve or stay in a chalet.
Okay.
And then being able to walk around in the forests and, just do the normal bird watching and game watching. But we've got some exciting things as well. We have kloofing, which is where you go down a gorge in the Hottentots Holland area and you jump off small cliffs, I suppose, into rock pools, and it's a trail that's quite exciting.
Okay.
That takes you through some pristine nature. And we've got, what else is there that's quite exciting? Whitewater rafting at Kuchelberg Nature Reserve, which is wonderful. Got a zip line. That's very exciting as well. That's on the Hottentots Holland Nature Reserve.
Okay.
And the rest of it is really just, there's so much to do. You can go snorkeling off De Hoop, or swimming, kayaking, all kinds of outdoor nature activities.
And I suppose like whale watching, that sort of thing as well.
Oh, yes, wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, whale watching, of course, yeah.
Are you a bit of a thrill seeker, Alan? I can see you on the zip line.
Yeah, did you hear? I got a bit excited when I mentioned the kloofing.
And the kloofing,
No, that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It really is.
So
Yeah, no.
when is the best time of year to plan a visit to a nature reserve, depending on the area or the activities?
Well, I suppose one wants to go to the hotter areas like the Knersvlakte and perhaps in the Karoo in the autumn and spring months when it's really, really beautiful and the weather's mild.
Yeah.
But generally the other reserves, apart from when it's extremely hot, I think all year round is fine. We are very safe with all visitors. Fire is a big issue in the Western Cape, and we make sure that, visitors are well informed if we have any fire risks.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say there's a season that I wouldn't go. There would be something one could do all throughout the year, really.
Would you have some advice for people that are, first-time visitors? They really haven't ventured outdoors and thought of actually visiting a nature reserve. Do you have any advice for them? Like things like what should you take along? What can you prepare for?
I think the best would be just to go to a nature reserve and explore a little bit and just see what one likes, what you like, It may be that you like just to stay in the cabin, have a nice view and have a restful weekend, or you might like to, discover the trails and become interested in the plants or the frogs or the birds. I think the starting point would really be just to do a bit of exploring, get to see what you like.
Okay.
And a good pair of walking shoes.
Always that, eh?
I'm really
Always.
I'm considering river rafting. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, yes.
Huh?
Oh,
Really,
yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
I'm trying to picture this.
Yes, it's going to be chaos, but it's going to be great. Are the local communities involved in the nature reserves?
Yes, we employ quite a few of the local community members to do some of the work on the nature reserves, like the alien vegetation clearing and some of the infrastructure work and so on. So we've got quite a big program to employ people. And it works very well because a lot of those individuals come from the very local community, the towns around the reserve. So it makes those reserves relevant. And we have a number of what would one call the biodiversity economy projects as well, where there's harvesting that goes on the reserve sustainably to allow people to make a living, which is very good and all very important because of this whole concept of these reserves are not owned by Cape Nature. They're not ours. We kind of the custodians of nature for the people of the Western Cape and South Africa. And if one can benefit the poorer directly, through economic benefits, I think it's just a wonderful opportunity.
And then it also educates at the same time.
Very much so. You're quite right. Yeah.
And then also you probably have programs with schools. I mean, I know, but myself and Kyle also, through the school, we've visited the nature reserve. So is that something that runs throughout Cape Nature?
Yes. We've got stakeholder engagement officers. They're called stakeholder engagement officers, and they focus mostly on that, on the environmental education and the capacity building and event days and bringing people together to do things on reserves, volunteers and so on. So there's a strong focus on that, and it's really a wonderful side of nature, very rewarding. When the groups of children, for example, come out and in some cases it's the first time that they've been exposed to some of these wonders of nature. Yeah. And you can see the excitement and the interest being sparked. It's wonderful.
Now, I remember a specific camp I went to. I think it was to the Kleinmond area. And very, very excited for it, ready to learn about nature. We did a nice hike, but the first morning we didn't sleep the night before. So the teacher got us up at like 5 o'clock and had us do like fitness drills and everything. So when the time came for the hike, just tired, eh? But still a lot of fun. Do you see a lot of the youth getting interested in nature conservation or
Yes. No, it's quite amazing, Carl. A lot of the youth are very, very interested, and as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, there's just such an awareness now amongst mostly the youth around how important nature is. I think much more than when I was, the same age. I think there wasn't this acknowledgement of how important it is to protect what we've got and how important that is just for life, really, So I think the awareness is really good.
It is, and you see a lot of the awareness on the internet, especially with climate change. It's something that's really spoken about a lot, and that's great. But I want to hear from you. What are you seeing when it comes to the impact of climate change?
It's quite difficult to, in short periods of time, to see the kind of actual results. What we do know, there's some modeling that has been done, very good modeling to project what is going to happen.
Okay.
And, we're looking at drier, hotter times with more, what would one call it, rainfall would really come in storms as opposed to be spread over time. So we're preparing to combat that which is very interesting as well. And it's what you mentioned earlier, Chanel, about the resilience of nature. So what we're doing is we're just trying to get our systems on the nature reserve, the natural systems, as healthy as possible, taking out the aliens, managing the fires properly, not degrading anything, because that allows the system to adapt to whatever change happens within reason, So that's what we focused on. But in terms of actual impacts of climate change, it's very difficult. I wouldn't say that I can see anything specific at this stage.
Okay. It must be quite difficult to balance this whole thing, the conservation part and then the tourism part as well, because you kind of need both to happen. But is that challenging, or how do you go about balancing that?
It is difficult if one pushes too hard either way. I think you're quite right. It is about a balance. And the tourism is so important, not just because it brings in some money for the conservation work to happen, but it also gives access to so many people to these areas. And again, that's around the relevance and importance of having them. So if one can, responsibly implement tourism that doesn't impact badly on nature, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to get out there and enjoy it.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I'm concerned here with people going into the nature reserve not really understanding their impact. Are there specific things that you can say people should stop doing, especially when they visit? Like, are they leaving things behind?
Don't feed the baboons.
Don't.
Number one.
Or are they like picking the flowers or taking the succulents, or don't you see a lot of that happening?
Yeah, unfortunately we do. And when it comes to the poaching, that's mostly kind of in the broader landscape off the nature reserves, because the nature reserves are quite well protected. We've got people on the reserves. But the basics are, as Kyle said, please don't feed the baboons. It's a big problem. They are completely wild animals. And then the little things, the basics, no littering, it spoils it for everybody. Be very careful of fires and smoking and so on. Fires can be, as we know, devastating. And you do have the odd silly person who would scratch on a rock art painting and things like that. It's just, I think, common sense things, really. We don't see any major disturbance on our nature reserves from tourists.
Okay.
It's really the smaller common sense things.
I see. Okay.
What type of facilities are available?
Well, we've got, let's see.
Because we've got a glamper here in Chanel.
Yes.
And I would
lovely.
probably
Chanel.
find myself in between.
You've decided I'm a glamper. But you can stay
we have
over.
Some wonderful glamping.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. No. We've got for all kinds of people that like to experience nature in different ways. You've got glamping and actual camping in tents, or you've got the rustic cabins.
Oh yes.
So there's a wide variety of things, and they're all very nice. Kuchelberg's got a wonderful couple of accommodation units there that are in the kind of glamping category.
Okay,
really
thanks. I'll make
beautiful.
There you go.
And Grootvadersbos, which is a kind of a tented glamping setup, which is also wonderful. And Frulikate, our nature reserve in the little Karoo over there, we've got the hot tubs and with the little chalets. So
that sounds
there's
nice.
room for luxury.
Oh, yes, definitely. So, listen, we've put you on the spot, I think, 1 or 2 times in the interview so far. So let's just keep doing it. I mean, do you have a favorite nature reserve? Or, you know what, an area? Let's make it easier.
Yeah. I think De Hoop probably is one of the favorite. Can I choose two? Okay.
Sure.
The one would be kind of in the succulent areas here in the Little Karoo. So that's the Gamkeberg complex of nature reserves. That's because it's so beautiful and dry and very well represented in terms of how natural that nature reserve is. And then De Hoop is because it's such an important reserve, covers such a large area of very important biodiversity, from inland all the way through to the coastal things and then into the marine protected area itself, which is massive and beautiful. And just favorite places. If one ever gets the opportunity to walk the whale trail there, it is exceptionally beautiful. I would have to go with that one. Really great.
It sounds lovely, Kyle. We should plan a trip, right?
We should definitely. I've heard mumbles and rumbles about trips being planned, but here I am.
You know what? I think a lot of people are thinking, it's time for me to get out there. And then they start wondering about cost. Like everywhere you go, you mentioned all of these reserves. Is it basically sort of the same standard fee for day visitors or does it differ?
It's the same. There's a conservation fee that's standard for across all of the nature reserves, and then the depending on what you want to do, there are very different prices for those. So whether it's camping or glamping or staying in a rustic chalet, there are different prices for that, and the website's got all of the prices on, and the client services, Cape Nature, are very good. Provide you with all of the information that you need. So if anybody is interested in looking at which reserve to go to, when and what's available, I think the website's got a lot of good information. And then, of course, the personnel at the client services as well provide very good information on anything specific that somebody's looking for.
I want to jump back to the alien species, the plants. I'm wondering how they actually got to South Africa and what's the plan? How do you get rid of them?
Yeah.
Oh, this is embarrassing.
Oh no.
Well, it was the greenies. So
the greenies. It's sounding more and more like actual aliens. Take me to your leader.
So, in long ago, before I was even around, there were people who wanted to stabilize. I'm talking about two of our big problem alien plants, the Port Jackson and the Rooikrans. They wanted to stabilize sand dunes because sand dunes naturally move. They're very dynamic and the wind blows them. It's all part of the natural system. But they wanted the Department of Forestry then wanted to stabilize these. So they had a big work creation program and they brought in these alien plants and planted dunes full of them. And they are very, very successful species. So they just took over completely. And that's kind of in the coastal areas. And then we have black wattle, for example, and Hackia. Black wattle coming from the forestry development and so on that escaped and then just thrived in the natural environment. And then we sit with that challenge today. So we've seen that many times, well-intentioned programs ending up with serious repercussions. And that's why we've got to watch what we do very carefully.
Yes, braai rooikrans then. Just go. Just do it as much as you can. Yeah, black wattle isn't bad as well.
Alan, I'm sure in your extensive experience, you've come across some interesting stories, or do you have anything you can share with us, even if it's just heartwarming or scary?
Or an actual alien.
I think it's so rewarding. There's so much that happens in conservation that's really rewarding. But if I think of the things that hit home deep in the heart, it's one example that I can think of relatively recently is we tried to establish a new breeding colony for African penguins, and they, very threatened species. And we used to have, a long time ago, there were indications of a colony on the De Hoop coastline. And so we've been trying to reestablish this by releasing, in partnership with BirdLife and Sandcob and others, releasing penguins on that site in the hope that they will return and start nesting.
Yes.
And it happened.
Nice.
The lady who's focusing on this project sent us a couple of photographs, very excited, with 2 fluffy little chicks looking out of the nest. And it was the most amazing thing. It was almost like bringing back a species from the brink of extinction. It was just fantastic.
That's
So,
wonderful.
it was really, really beautiful to see that. And I think those are the things that get me when you see those, even the animals when they're breeding and you see the young lambs or whatever it is that are coming out, and you see them happy and successfully kind of breeding and living on these nature reserves. It's very, very rewarding. I think those are the ones that really get to one's heart,
That's your reason why.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the reward for the passion you put in.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the chat, Alan. We've got a few products we want to chat about that can make your nature reserve experience a bit more fun. So stick around and, let's climb in right after this.
Gear up for the perfect adventure with the largest range of adventure gear in South Africa. You can find anything from tents, gazebos, cookware and mobile refrigeration to clothing, lighting and smart devices. Everything you need under one roof. Download our handy packing list online or browse our expert advice articles to get you ready for your next adventure. Outdoor Warehouse. For every adventure. Also buy online.
For every adventure podcast, bringing you all the tips and tricks for your next adventure.
So, Kyle, I think first things first, you need hiking boots. Okay,
definitely.
I've sort of, I've got some hiking shoes going, so I'm all right. But for you,
Yes.
Outdoor Warehouse I've now gone to look. Okay, they've got a great boot. It's the high tech. It has to be high tech.
Okay.
And it's called an Altitude V Ultra waterproof hiking boots, because you also spoke about possibly going near the river, like the water,
Yes,
right?
river rafting. But I don't know if you're going to be wearing hiking boots in the boat.
No, like outside the boat.
Okay. All right. I got you.
Although I wouldn't know.
I don't know. Alan,
Never tried it.
see, this is the great thing about having an expert with every episode. Alan, over to you.
I think that's great. I mean, the boots are essential in going into a nature reserve. But also, it depends on what you're doing. I mean, I know for myself, if you're doing little day trails, there's nothing wrong with a good pair of tackies, trail tackies. They're really comfortable. What you need boots for is if you're doing some of the tougher hikes, up into the mountains or something, you need good ankle support. Then those high-tech boots are really, really nice. But for river rafting, Kyle, barefoot or tackies.
I'm in. I'm sorted. I've got bare feet already. Don't have to go get some. So I'm ready to climb in.
The great thing is at the store, they'll advise you. So you don't go in cold and just buy a pair. They're really good with sort of explaining why you have to check your size properly and which socks and whatever.
And Alan, and a backpack, very important for a good visit to the nature reserves, right?
Yes, very good. Very important. A good backpack. If you have a bad backpack, you'll feel it soon enough.
Okay.
A good backpack, even just for the day trails, just to take a bit of water and your food and your camera or whatever you're going to take, just to sit comfortably around the shoulders. Very important.
And you mentioned a camera, like a good Volcano Extreme Series 4K UHD. That looks really good. An action camera for that hike, right? Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A good variety at Outdoor Warehouse. And then also a GPS. That could be handy.
Yes.
I suppose you can't really get lost.
I beg to differ. We could see.
They do supply like maps at the entrance, which is always great because you feel like you're going on this adventure and you can sort of follow, and see exactly where you're going.
You always have the one guy in the group going off trail to see.
That's Kyle.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll get you that GPS.
Yeah, also get me a hat. That's just so important. Whenever you're going to be outside, don't get sunburned. If you have red hair like me, just don't. It's not worth it. Wear a hat.
They've got great options there at Outdoor Warehouse. There's one called the Rogue Explorer hat, which suits Kyle. Sort of got a bit of a cowboy feel there.
Howdy.
Howdy, partner. Yeah, it's a nice one for you.
Check out outdoorwarehouse.co.za and search for whatever you need, or even better, just go to the closest branch. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Alan. This was a fun chat.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks very much, Alan.
Yeah, and get outside, get to the nature reserves, get yourself educated about the conservation aspect of it, and more importantly, just go experience nature.
And take the kids
Take
so
the
that
kids.
they also get into
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
And the hats.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.
Cheers, Alan.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to you for listening. Remember, we're on Spotify and on Apple. We'll see you every 2 weeks with a brand new episode of For Every Adventure.
Join the For Every Adventure podcast as we explore the great outdoors.